So today I was asked to speak about reinventing life during COVID and post-COVID-19. Hopefully, a very soon to come post-COVID-19. So let's address that first, right? Right now, just let's address the pandemic. And we can show this slide later. Doron, just go back to the first slide. So I want to just speak about something very important right now in terms of the pandemic, because as we look around the world, we see that everybody in the world, almost everybody, is going through different stages of what can only be called grief. Grief happens when we lose something in our lives. So people grieve when they have a death in the family, they lose a significant other, they go through a divorce, they lose their job, they find themselves in a severe crisis, they have an accident. As we know, there are every day multiple reasons why people experience this phenomenon called grief, which is a result of a loss of something that you assumed was normal, for something that you assumed and took for granted. And of course, we took our existence for granted. Nobody wakes up every morning and says, wow, I exist. You should, actually, because existence should be a perpetual surprise. And that's what makes existence so important. But when we take existence for granted, not with gratitude, and then something happens like this, which threatens our very existence, then obviously we feel tremendous loss and grief, and as a result, stress. As a physician, I've seen people going through grief, and I see that a lot of them go through the following stages. So when people experience loss, the first thing they also react with is victimization. They feel victimized. Why me? Of course, right now, COVID-19 is affecting everyone. But in any case, anyone who's affected feels victimized. And then the second stage is anger, maybe even hostility. And then the third stage is frustration. And the fourth stage is resignation. And the fifth stage is even worse. It's helplessness. And at this point, some people get stuck. But some people, a few, find acceptance. And as soon as you find acceptance, which you have to, because it is what it is, then some people find meaning. So I want to suggest that this is a moment for some of us, at least, who find acceptance can also find meaning. And I want to address what that meaning is. But meanwhile, people are going through several pandemics at the same time. So one is the infection, the pandemic of COVID-19. The second is the pandemic that we could call economic crises throughout the world. And the third pandemic right now is stress and grief. And a lot of people have not yet found acceptance or meaning, and therefore they're still in the process of grieving, which is causing a lot of anger, resignation, etc. And in our studies at the Chopra Foundation, we have discovered that those people who are more susceptible to the morbidity, which means they get sick from the disease, and mortality, which means they die from the disease, this population, this demographic, has certain common factors. They have stress, they have deep anxiety, they have depression, and they also have chronic low-grade inflammation if they are elderly. And as a result of chronic low-grade inflammation, they're likely to have diabetes or metabolic syndrome, cardiovascular disease, or some other illness like asthma or autoimmune illness of some kind, or another kind of chronic infection. And then when they get COVID-19, they go into a crisis. But now we are also seeing that a lot of young people are getting acutely sick and getting morbidity and also mortality And these people are, in addition to having chronic stress and inflammation, these people also have what we can call acute inflammation. And so that acute inflammation is frequently referred to as a cytokine storm. And this inflammatory storm crosses, creates biological havoc in the body. Doron, don't show the slides till I ask you to, okay? So stay with the conversation for the moment. Okay, is everybody able to hear me and see me? Are we all going strong? Okay, so what can we do to decrease acute inflammation? And what can we do to decrease chronic inflammation? And our studies have shown that those people who practice certain mental, mind, body, and physical activities, they can decrease their inflammation, acute and chronic, significantly, 65 to 70%, and therefore their chances of getting sick are dramatically reduced. Acutely sick and chronically sick are dramatically reduced. So I would like to address these different aspects of well-being, which are very important right now as the pillars of well-being, to decrease inflammation, anxiety, depression, stress, and the inflammatory storms that cause morbidity and mortality. So with that, may I have the first slide? It says, New Scientist, Your Thinking Body. Can we see that first slide, please? Doron, could you please show the first slide? Okay, so next slide, please. If you can show the next slide. This is a recent issue of New Scientist, and I wanted to show it because there's already a conversation happening in the scientific world that your mind is not in your brain and is in all the cells of your body, but your mind may actually extend outside the confines of your body as part of a deeper consciousness in which we all are differentiated minds. So as human beings and other living species, we all have our own mind, but the mind is always in relationship to other minds. The mind is frequently defined as by good scientists. Dr. Dan Siegel, for example, has defined mind as an embodied and relational process that regulates the flow of energy and information in an ecosystem of sentient beings and relationships. So you can see your mind, my mind, other people's mind, even the minds of other species are part of a matrix of minds, but they all are differentiated aspects of a single awareness or consciousness, the deeper ground of existence. So awareness, existence, pure consciousness differentiates into minds, and the matrix of minds and the genetic microbiome that ultimately creates the biological organisms that we call sentient beings with their minds are collectively projecting our experience of the world, of the universe. Now, once we understand this, then in addition to managing acutely right now, the crisis, COVID-19, we can go a little deeper into what is the deeper meaning and are we going to address that or not. But if I can see the next slide, just to show you some of the data that has recently been gathered from places like WebMD and others. You can see the data right now that people are claiming that stress in the workplace is the number one source of stress. And right now, the workplace, of course, many times is at home, which incidentally can cause even more stress. The American Psychological Association's 2015 report said that the top two sources of stress were financial worries, which is happening right now, and work worries, which is also happening right now and is much worse. These statistics that I'm showing you are much worse right now. People are getting sick, and people, statistically, there are more people dying of heart attacks um, uh, every day of the week than before. And also, as you know, there's something called Black Monday syndrome, the fact that more people have heart attacks on Monday morning than at any other times because they dislike what they do every day for a living. Be that aside, this whole situation has gotten much worse. So, with that as the background, and with the fact that mental and physical well being go together, we don't say mind and body these days, we say body mind. So, body mind is a single unit, just like wave particle is a single unit, mass energy is a single unit, time space is a single unit, body mind is a single unit. Whatever happens in the mind is reflected in the body. Whatever happens in the body has a biological correlate in the nervous system. So given that, what is the data that shows us the most important pillars for personal well-being? If I can see the next slide, I'll share with you here the 7 most important pillars that will mitigate inflammation in your body, that will decrease both acute and chronic inflammation, that will stimulate a part of your nervous system called the parasympathetic nervous system, and a nerve in the parasympathetic nervous system called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, and the vagus is a Latin word, but related to the English word vagabond. The vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve, which we can see is the opposite of what the sympathetic nervous system does. Right now, because of sympathetic overdrive and stress, people are having inflammation. So the vagus nerve is the opposite of that. It is referred to as the rest, rejuvenate, and digest system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the healing system. The sympathetic nervous system is the fight-flight response that we get in acute stressful situations. So here are the 7 pillars of well-being on the slide that can help you tremendously in decreasing your stress, but also decreasing inflammation and chronic and acute illness. As you see, number 1 is sleep over there. These are not in order of importance. I think they're all equally important, but now it's becoming clear that lack of sleep in the Western world, particularly in older people, could be the number 1 risk factor for sudden death from premature heart attacks and cardiovascular disease. So sleep is very important, both dream sleep and also deep sleep and light sleep. And of course, the amount of sleep recommended is anywhere between 7 to 8 hours, with 90 minutes of deep sleep and 90 minutes of REM sleep. And today we have all these interesting ways and gadgets to measure our sleep response every night. And I would suggest that you make it a priority to sleep latest by 10:30, wake up by 6 to 6:30, try and get 6 to 7 hours and ultimately build up to 8 hours of good restful sleep. You will decrease your chances of Alzheimer's, you will decrease your chances of chronic disease and even obesity, and your hormones will get regulated, your immune function will improve, and your biological responses will reset themselves. It is during deep sleep that junk is flushed out from our brain and the amyloid, etc., which causes Alzheimer's. So also lack of delta sleep is the number 1 risk factor for Alzheimer's as well. Second here, on the slide, you see meditation and stress management. And we have done a lot of research at our foundation in collaboration with other institutions that show unequivocally that when people practice even 20 minutes of meditation once or twice a day, inflammatory markers go down, and genes that cause self-regulation go up. Some genes are upgraded 17-fold over baseline. Genes that cause inappropriate inflammation go down, and healing occurs. The level of an enzyme called telomerase goes up by 40% in 1 week of meditation practice. So in addition to meditation practice, I will ignore the phone. Don't worry about it. It will pass. Okay. So the phone will pass, and or let me just take it. I think I'm going to ignore the phone. So I was just saying that meditation and stress management, all the research we've done that stimulates the vagus nerve and causes biological healing, but also increases telomerase, which is what is regulating the biological clock. In other words, meditation slows down the aging process and also reverses some of it. The third aspect that you see here is movement, yoga, and pranayama. It is recommended that you walk about 10,000 steps every day, and that you try and build up to that, between 5,000 to 10,000 steps a day, to keep up your cardiovascular activity and aerobic activity in prime shape. But if you add to that yoga and pranayama, then you accelerate the healing process. Again, the secret is stimulation of the vagus nerve. By the way, there are now devices to measure vagal stimulation and vagal watches being developed, of course, as usual in Israel. And I'm using a vagal watch right now that is under study and created in Israel as well. Our emotions also influence our well-being. So if you have love, compassion, joy, equanimity, peace of mind, if you have forgiveness in your heart, if you feel gratitude, inflammatory markers will come down and immune system will get stimulated. And these studies have now been published. The fifth pillar here is nutrition. And of course, nutrition is now becoming very important because we understand that the genetic microbiome in our body accounts for about 90% of the genetic information on the planet. So if you eat a maximum diversity of plant-based foods, you're getting the best genetic information in your body that is coming from outside sources. So, you know, we have only 25,000 of genes in our body are human genes. About 2 million genes in our body are bacterial genes, and the bacterial genes and human genes interact with each other to produce your biology and its self-regulation. You can't change your human genes. They were given to you by your parents, but you can change your bacterial genes. In other words, you can change more than 99% of the genetic information in your body, and the human genes can be epigenetically modified for health and well-being through these 7 pillars. In other words, you can actually totally reinvent your body through nutrition alone. Of course, everything else matters as well. The sixth slide that you see here is on biological rhythms. So as human beings, we have several biological rhythms, circadian rhythms, which follow the cycle of night and day, seasonal rhythms, even lunar rhythms and tidal rhythms, because our planet is part of the symphony of the total universe, and our biological systems are part of the ecosystem. And so, you know, we are part of the universal music. That's why we call it the universe, one song. So when our body is in harmony with our cosmic body, it also heals ourselves. A little bit of practice of grounding, walking barefoot on the ground, on the beach, touching a tree, walking in natural environments, even using grounding devices will help reinvent your body, begin self-regulation, healing, and everything else. So these are the 6 most important pillars. And now come to the 7th most important thing, which is I was talking about what is the deeper meaning. And my friends, I have to say the deeper meaning is that we are not looking at this situation in a holistic manner. We are looking for immediate results, whether it is through a vaccine, which I hope will come soon, hopefully from Israel, India, wherever. But A vaccine will be very important, addressing this immediate situation. But ultimately, we have to look at the deeper meaning, which I started with. And I think the deeper meaning, my friends, is that we have a very stressed ecosystem today. And the ecosystem includes nature, your biology, the biosphere, my biology. And therefore, actually, the genetic microbiome, which is extremely stressed, the planetary genetic microbiome, which is extremely stressed and which results in these mutations. COVID-19 is so called because it's the latest mutation, 2019. COVID has existed for millions of years, and mutations occur periodically. People used to think randomly, but it is very obvious they are due to toxicity in the environment and a stressed genetic planetary microbiome. So climate change, economic disasters, mass migrations globally, eco-destruction, extinction of species, social and injustice, economic trade wars, mechanized ways of self-destruction, including nuclear weapons and biological weapons and cyber warfare, are now leading us on the path to self-destruction. And COVID-19 is just the latest symptom. But even as we are now confined in our homes, you can see that the biosphere is repairing itself. You can see that the birds are singing. You can see that the fish are returning to dead lakes. Even the canals of Venice are seeing fish. You can see that the Himalayas can be seen from 500 miles away. Birds are singing, bees are back. Bees are responsible for 80 to 90% of our nutrition on this planet. And people are breathing better in polluted cities. So now we know that climate change is reversible. We also know that an oil-free economy is possible. So this is the deeper meaning that I was suggesting, and this is a moment of opportunity for us to reinvent our bodies, resurrect our souls through self-awareness, and ultimately hope to reach a critical mass for a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. So with that, Doron, I would like you to show me the next slide, which goes beyond what we call the 7 pillars and to what I call the total well-being of the ecosystem that we call society. And that includes career well-being, job well-being. We find that in corporate worlds, when people have shared vision, where they have good leadership, where they complement each other's strengths, where there's maximum diversity, where their talent is noticed, where they're appreciated, and where they work like a sports team, the business thrives. And this is an opportunity right now to reinvent our career well-beings, because a lot of people are working from different locations and yet they're part of a team. And as part of teams, we need to have shared vision, complement each other's strengths, which means add to each other's strengths, and also bond with each other through attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. And these days, we can do it online, as you know. Physical well-being, I've mentioned all the pillars of well-being already. Financial well-being occurs when people share resources, when there is a method to help everyone. And in this area, I would like to say that recently the Chopra Foundation has partnered with a blockchain, Hedera company, to create a blockchain system for mental health and well-being. And this is going to be the new trend: distributed resources, total transparency, open feedback, everybody complementing each other's strengths, traceability, authenticity. We can actually create financial well-being across the world through new technologies, including blockchain and cryptocurrencies, but also distributed economic systems. Which finally brings me to community well-being, which requires three things. We say in the East, take refuge in the Dharma, which means higher calling, take refuge in the Buddha, which means expanded consciousness, and take refuge in the Sangha. Let's create global online and offline communities to help each other, create joyful, energetic body, loving, compassionate heart, reflective, alert mind, and lightness of being. If we can do that collectively, we can hope to see a more sustainable, joyful, healthier, and peaceful world. Next slide, please. So I want to just share with you some of the material that I use for training leaders. This is an acronym. We have to, at this moment, look and listen to each other very carefully. We have to bond emotionally through attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. We have to expand our awareness to find the deeper meaning of this crisis. We have to dare dream a new reality, and we have to do it. We have to empower each other. We have to take responsibility, not only for ourselves, but our families and our friends and our communities and the world. And we have to harness the power of meaningful coincidences and synchronicities. So let me see the next slide, please. And this is a little bit of historical perspective on pandemics and financial crises over the last 100 years. And you can see every time there's been a pandemic or a crisis, new products and technologies have come forth. In the 1920s, we had, after the First World War, AM radio. In the 1940s, after the Second World War, television, the internet. In the 1990s, smartphones, 2000, and then it went totally crazy now with artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented dreamscapes, and harnessing biotechnology with amazing biofeedback, where we can intervene through VR, immersive technologies. And I can guarantee you, my friends, when this pandemic is over and there are new vaccines, we'll also see numerous new technologies. And I'm sure a lot of them will be coming from Israel itself. So next slide, please. If we can see what is happening. Right now, a lot of us who are working in the field of technology are creating new algorithms, correlating biometrics to well-being, looking at brain entrainment, precision genomics, mental health, pain management, stress management, bioregulation, and tying these algorithms into master algorithms where you can introduce mind-body interventions before a crisis arises or even in the midst of a crisis. Next slide, please. So biofeedback is something that has been very dear to me, but I've, of course, practiced yoga for now 40 years. And we can see that today we can measure everything related to almost every biomarker in the body. We can actually work towards a reflective, alert mind. We can correlate that with breathing rate, heart rate variability, blood pressure, genetic activity, and many, many more things, including what happens to us in our dream states and how our digestive functions influence our moods and so on. Just a preview of the coming technologies that will become available, I hope, as the pandemic passes and is over. Next slide, please. So these are all the new the techniques that we are using. Techniques are not new, but measurement and our ability to measure them and intervene them and accelerate learning is very new. And this has become a passion of mine, the future of well-being and technology, combining ancient wisdom traditions with modern technology. I know that Doron is a big fan for technology. I hope to connect with him later on how we can collaborate together on well-being and technology. Next slide, please. So this is our mission. We want to leverage the potential of emergent biometrics for well-being, immersive technologies to deliver the well-being tools of the future society. And this is going to only happen when there is emergence, which means there is global cooperation and there is connecting our vision together and having a totally transparent and open system. Now, I know I'm getting the feedback that I went over the slides too fast, but the slides are there for you to go look at them again. Given the constraints we have on time, I thought it is better to go over all the material that I had planned. Next slide, please. So there are many free resources that you can look at online. These are some of them, and these are the URLs, and you can find these by going back to these slides. Doron, can we go to the final slide now, if there is one? But I will stop here, I think, and invite questions from you. I know I've covered a lot of material, but it was important for me to share with you that this is a moment also that we could call an opportunity. And when opportunity comes together with crisis and meaning and purpose, then we can actually transform ourselves and transform the world. And this is our moment. Together, we can help to create a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. So I'm very happy to answer any questions that you may have. And let's do that now.
The first question is about your new book, Total Meditation. Can you expand a little bit? Because a lot of people would like to have it and would like to learn about total meditation.
So Total Meditation comes out in September and internationally. It can be pre-ordered right now. I was asking myself, what if somebody could be in a state of centered awareness all the time, not just during periods of meditation? So if you could be aware of what you're sensing right now, sensations, perceptions, images, feelings, thoughts, you would immediately know not only what you're sensing, but what to choose in this moment to experience a joyful, energetic body, a loving, compassionate heart, a reflected, quiet mind, and lightness of being. And if you could stay there, that is what we would call peak living. So right now, artists talk about peak performance, a grand piano performance or a musical performance, a great piece of art, a scientific discovery, a great, athletes talk about peak moments, how about peak living? How about having that experience all the time, which means living with no resistance, no regrets, in the moment, frictionless flow, lightness of being. That's what total meditation is about.
I love it because you represent it right now with your look and with your life and how you live your life, and it's a role model for others. Tell us a little bit about Never Alone, because this is important.
A while ago, I found out that suicide is the second most common cause of death in young people. Every 40 seconds, somebody is committing suicide in the world. And this is a very, very disgraceful situation for our humanity. It means we are not caring enough right now. We don't have enough compassion, empathy, joy, and in ourselves, peace in ourselves. And we are actually risking the lives of our children and our grandchildren. So Never Alone, and the website is www.neveralone.love, is a distributed platform globally. And we would like to partner with you, Doron, and your ecosystem So we can tell people across the world, you're not alone. You're never alone. We are here for you. And we can offer resources, even financial resources, but also other resources, psychological, emotional, counseling, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology. So we can all be there for each other, irrespective of what the governments and the corporations do in the world. We are here for each other, and we are never alone.
Wow, this is so important and so beautiful, and people needs to hear it. We are never alone. And another question is about, you are a guide to so many people about living a life with a purpose and being present, doing meditation. Would you recommend people to find their guide in order to really live a life as you describe of total meditation?
We are living in very interesting times. You have a channel right now for mentorship. That's a guide, right?
Yes.
You can go to my YouTube channel, The Chopra Well. That's a guide. We have so many guides. So we are living in such good times that you can find any guide you want through a little due diligence. Go to your channel, go to Chopra Well. Go to the websites of people who are talking about the divine feminine. There's so many people talking about the issues we've discussed. So choose your guide selectively, but your best guide is your inner self in silence.
Beautiful.
And receive from yourself.
Deepak, I heard you in the past talking about technology. It's not good or bad, it's what we do about it. The same about money. What do you think about artificial intelligence right now that's coming into our life?
Well, I think, first of all, you can't stop artificial intelligence from coming. It's here and it's moving at very fast pace. So if you think you can stop it, you will become irrelevant. Now, having said that, artificial intelligence is moving so fast that it will build in safeguards for ethical use. And that's the number one conversation right now in the artificial intelligence community. I'm creating my own artificial intelligence avatar. It's called Digital DEEPAK, and it has built into it a system of ethical cooperation with other AI bots out there. So long after I'm dead, my artificial intelligence twin will continue to learn from future generations, but will also tell them about what happened in our generations, how we tackled the COVID-19, how we found meaning. This is going to be a cross-generational dialogue that will occur between ancestors and descendants for the rest of recorded history. So don't stop it. This is going to be a very exciting time.
Exactly. I know how much you love technology, and you mention it here. Just as a closing forecast, are you optimistic about what COVID brings to the world? You were talking about bees are coming back. You were talking about us going within to find, the essence of human being. You always talked about human being versus human doing, and suddenly COVID brings us closer to our nature.
Optimism implies also that there are other people who are pessimistic. And then people also say, are you hopeful? Which implies that there is despair. So despair and hope go together. Optimism and pessimism go together. I'm neither optimistic nor pessimistic. I'm saying just be realistic. And if you're really realistic, then there is a lot of creative opportunity to totally reinvent life on this planet and create a more peaceful, joyful, socially, economically just and sustainable and healthier world. That comes from collective creativity, not just by being optimistic.
Oh, that's beautiful. Because I remember that human species could be a pilot that was failed.
That's right. No, we better we bet if we don't take this opportunity, then of course, nature might say the human species was a good experiment, but unfortunately it didn't work. We don't want that to happen.
Mm-hmm. I'm taking one question from Sarah. Do you feel that long-term experience with the COVID-19 is actually doing more harm to the US because of the various conspiracy theories and conflict among communities?
The short answer is yes. And I think the US is losing its status as a world leader. Hopefully everything will change. And, they say nature has a way of self-regulating. This is part of our crisis as well. But I agree with Sarah, yes.
Wonderful. Dr. Deepak Chopra, we are so pleased to have you.
It's always a joy to be with you. God bless.
For your heart, for your love, and for the inspiration for the entire world. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Bless. God bless.